Welcome back to the Blurred Wire. Today, it's time to review Wonder Man, and this was kind of a pleasant surprise. Like, I don't know, it was definitely a surprise. For obviously for spoilers, right? Like, let's just get that out of the way. This is gonna be a spoiler review. Recently had a chance to finish it with my wife. We watched the full 8 episodes. What I can say for sure is this was definitely the way to release a TV show. Drop all the episodes at once. I think the binging culture that Netflix created, like sometimes things work. I think things only work like one episode at a time if it's more episodic. Whereas then you have like a contained narrative in each story. But when it's more of an overarching theme, to me, I think it just makes more sense to drop it all at once. That's what they did with all those and like all those Netflix series that, again, you could kind of watch at your own pace, but at the same time, it gripped you. Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. We'll just stop there. Don't need to include the other one. Um, but those things gripped you and it made you invested in the storyline, right? And I think dropping it all at once made a big difference on that. And I know, like, again, the week by week versus there's like a whole debate about that. But I think dropping Wonder Man all at once, I don't think it would have worked as well dropping it week by week. And it's not necessarily a like it's weird because it's like it's not that would make it bad, right? But just the series is like when people watch a story, they want it to be concluded or like like okay, I'm gonna come back to it later, not like have to be forced to wait. I don't know, I can't really explain it that well, but like the Rookie works week to week because it's all episodic stuff. Most things are tied up in one week. um so I don't think Wonder Man would have worked if you did it week to week because I think it was too slow to do that, because I think if you did it week to week, you kind of just get bored and stop watching, like stop trying to keep track, be ready for it to come out. Like, this isn't, I think Disney forgot that like we're no longer in the Disney Channel era of like, oh, catch the new episode to Monday night at 8. Like, it's just a different era. And especially when you've got a streaming app, like people just aren't going to end up waiting around to try to see it. Just let them watch it at their own pace. And I think that's improving a lot of the reviews of it and why people are responding to Wonder Man so favorably. Um, I mean, it was pretty funny. It was very, very self contained. Like, it still obviously happened within the Marvel Universe, and they still had connections with Trevor Slattery. And his past with Iron Man played a big role. I wasn't expecting Trevor Slattery to have as big of a role as he did. Um, but it still felt like it worked. And again, it tied in nicely to everything else. I felt like they didn't really leave anything else out. Like they didn't really reference his journey in Shang-Chi, but like he was coming from the airport from China because I guess like at some point he went home. And the FBI just tackled him as soon as he gets back, which is pretty funny. But yeah, for him to be going out for Wonder Man and everything, and then for so again, I don't really like rehash the story because I don't really need to review it. Um, but I thought it, for lack of a better term, I guess I would say simple. It was a very simple storyline. This was not about a superhero who acts. This was about an actor who has powers. Like you could tell that the focus was on Simon Williams' acting career. I think there was maybe like two or three fight scenes. I don't even think you could really qualify this as an action show. And it almost would have worked outside of Marvel. Like it kind of feels like a project that could have been a miniseries on like Apple TV or something. You know what I mean? Like it didn't necessarily have to be Marvel. It could have been in anything, and it was just a guy who happens to have powers who wants a role to play a superhero. So I think Yahya Abdul-Mateen did a great job getting into the depths of Simon Williams. I think they took a lot of. I wouldn't be surprised if a writer from Atlanta worked on this show, or if they just watched a lot of it and took a lot of influence in it. Because I feel like I see Atlanta was a phenomenal show, but I feel like I see a lot of Atlanta influence in this show. And again, hard to explain, but if you watch it, you would know what I mean, especially the doorman episode. I think that was the one that made me, it just gave me Atlanta vibes. So, but no, overall, I'd probably rate it a solid 8 out of 10. I want to say 7 because my Marvel brain is saying like I got to dock it for not having enough action and not being like Marvelly superhero enough. Like we barely saw Simon use his powers, and we don't really understand what his powers are. But they set this one up for multiple seasons. Like they don't want just season 2; they want a season 3. His brother. I mean, again, spoilers. His brother didn't even become Grim Reaper in the film, and it kind of seemed like he was going to be the main villain, but they just didn't really have one. And it was a very interesting way to tell the story. Um, and again, it was very cool to watch Simon go after and get everything that he's pretty much ever wanted. So it did enough to keep you on your toes. It did enough to surprise you. I think the lack of hype around it also helps because people weren't like psychoanalyzing it. Just kind of let it be what it is. And it was a show about a guy who really wants to be an actor. Um, yeah, and some of the scenes that they had where someone pointed out a really good point online where it's like if dreams are supposed to be doorways into our multiversal selves, at some point Simon Williams had a dream where he punched a guy's head like clear through. And they're like, so technically that happened in the multiverse. Obviously Disney's probably not going to address that. But yeah, I don't think like this project I don't think is going to have anything to do with Doomsday or Secret Wars. I mean, it was called Marvel Spotlight, so I think they purposely when they do that spotlight thing, it's to say that like this doesn't necessarily affect the rest of Marvel or like we may not ever see Wonder Man and the Avengers together. It's just kind of its own thing. Um and it was nice. It was nice. It's not going to get me excited and hyped for the MCU. I think it was nice. And to me, I think the biggest thing is like this is kind of what they should have dropped like in those first few episodes. Like it feels like the timing because we're heading towards the big doomsday, right? And like we need to be getting hyped and getting people excited for that. And Thunderbolts kind of did that. Brave New World I thought was going to do that and it didn't really do that. And Fantastic Four kind of did that. And this feels like it just kind of went in a different direction, right? So like I think had this come out, like this would have been the perfect thing to drop in 22 or 21. Um and I think this would have worked really well. Um I think it would have fit in really well. But we didn't end up getting. And again, it's kind of like you did all this to release Wonder Man. I think Disney is like also trying to consider like their budgets and things for how they release projects because like Moon Knight came out and we never got to see season 2 and it looks like we probably won't get a season 2. I don't know if we're ever going to see Moon Knight again, and they left it on a huge cliffhanger. And so yeah, I mean, I think there's a place for Wonder Man. To me, like those spotlight things that don't really affect the rest of the universe, to me, that's like a special presentation kind of thing. Like, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. It's a special presentation. Like with Agatha all along, instead of making that a series, I would have just made it like a special presentation for like Halloween. Again, I don't really like witches or any of that stuff anyways. So maybe that's just me. A lot of people liked that show somehow. I don't know. But like to me, and like Echo, like maybe I would have given her like a special presentation because her show just ended up not really it. Like for a show that dropped everything at once, her show felt very dull. And I think that's just the difference too. It's like this was not an action show. We knew this was kind of like a Hollywood satirical piece almost. So I think that made a difference as well. Like Echo is supposed to be an action show and it ended up being slow. This was slow, but it made sense because it was a Hollywood, and before you knew it, it was over. And it was like, oh wow, okay, I watched the whole thing. Like it's slow, but you end up going through it quickly. And again, compared to Echo, which is supposed to be like an action show, and there was some action, but not really, you know. And then, like Jessica Jones didn't have a ton of action, but you were keyed into it because it was a detective show. private investigating show. So she was uncovering all these clues. So yeah, I can't necessarily put my finger on it or what worked, but I think Wonder Man did work, and I just wish they had released it earlier because this would have been a great way to introduce us to him. Like now, everything should be geared towards getting us hyped for Doomsday, like dropping clues, dropping things, you know, and it would be so much better if we didn't even know that Robert Downey Jr. was going to be Doom. Have him just take off his mask and we find out it's Robert Downey Jr. the entire time. That would have been cool. I don't know about cool because I think everyone's kind of ready for him to be done, but they felt like no one else could play this character except for him. Whatever. That's getting into another thing. So if you've watched Wonder Man, let me know your thoughts down below. Um, let me know if you liked it, if you didn't, any of that, all of the above. And are you actually excited for Doomsday? Yeah. Let me know your thoughts below. Until next time, guys.